there was a little light in Peru in the 1500s, and that little light was born of a woman whose husband left her, born out of wedlock. That little light, Martin of PORRES, Peru, grew up searching for God in his life, and he spent many long hours in prayer. He was put down by society because he was half Peruvian and half Caribbean. He was regarded as what they call a mulatta. He had no status in society as a poor mulatta in that period in Peru. However, he had a great devotion to God. And as he grew, the devotion grew within him, and he offered his services as a volunteer to a Dominican friary, where he would sweep and clean things up. They sent him, of all things, to barber school. Haircut barber? Barber school. Because that was the place then that people went for first aid. You know, the typical barber stand that we used to see in front of the barber stores, the red and white circle, that red and white symbol is still with us in many areas. So there he learned how to heal, how to become a barber. And what do barbers do after they cut the hair? They sweep up. He learned how to sweep. He learned how to keep the place clean. When he goes back to the monastery, he has these talents now. He's a healer. He knows the medical tradition as far as they knew it then, in the 16th century. He was clean. He kept place nice and tidy. And he was a healer, a person who took care of people. So, because he was a mulatta, he wasn't accepted into the order as a full brother, or definitely not a priest. He was looked down upon. In some areas of our society, we have not grown away from that prejudice. He was literally a kid without a world. He was unique in the world. And his uniqueness settled on the fact that he was not accepted. So they took his services into the monastery. And there in the monastery, he kept things clean. They assigned him to the medic, little hospital they had. And then strange things started happening. He was using his art as a healer to heal, but there was something else in his process of healing. He was seen many times in more than one place at the same time. We call that bilocation. He healed people who were on the brink of death and had no hope for survival. He was a miracle worker. This little, unknown, insignificant individual from Peru. As time goes on, they are given him a dispensation, so he is ordained, he becomes a priest and a healer. And people flock to him. Think of the irony of it. They flock to this poor guy who has no credentials but God on his side. And with those credentials, he heals and brings peace to people. The scriptures tell us today, Jesus reminds us, that you're the light of the world. You're the salt of the earth. And that indeed applies to Martin of PORRES. He was a little light that became a bright light, like Jesus talks about the light on a hill, a city on a hill. He had no flavor. He had no status, like the salt that is thrown out and trampled underfoot. But yet, he becomes a flavorful individual on behalf of God and God's people. He loved the poor. He also had, and this is special, an affection for animals. They say he used to talk, well, I talk to my animal too, I talk to my dog, but they say they understood each other. He would speak to animals, and they responded to him appropriately. I don't know verbally or what he did, though. But just think of the humility of this individual who is confined with sweeping up, working in the medical field, not a very prestigious position at that point, and taking care of the little animals that came. And also not only the animals that came, but to the poor that came to the monastery for handouts. He knew what that was like to be on the other side because he was poor. He was raised by a mother whose husband left her because they were mixed race. He was looked down upon. So he knew poverty, but he didn't let the poverty hold him down. He recognized his talents and went forward and shared those talents. He recognized who he was as a, I want to say, son of God, and he let that be known through his life and his prayer, and that prayer continued and continued. There were times when he prayed and he would raise up off the ground. He would levitate. So the people in the town got word of this, and they know this Martin of Tours certainly lived out the gospel message in his life. Now everybody loves a miracle worker, everybody loves someone with extra talent, but this little guy did not bank on his talent. He depended on the humility that God blessed him with, and with that humility, he becomes a saint. He was only canonized in the 60s by John 23rd. So for many years, he was Blessed Martin de Tours. Now we know him as St. Martin de Tours. The little waif, the abandoned one, becomes a saint. We're in the season, November, remembering All Saints' Day, November 1st, All the Dead, November 2nd. A good time for us to reflect on the simplicity of our faith at times. The simplicity of our faith that goes to little people and raises them up. We who have been born into our faith have to acknowledge our humility and gratitude for God, for giving us something that connects us with the eternal. Martin certainly knew that in his life. He was connected with the Eternal One and blessed as a saint among us. A saint for the poor, a saint for the racially mixed, a saint of barbers, a saint of healers. What an example from that little guy in PORRES, Peru.